Hi, everyone, if anyone's on here. Hi, can you all hear me?
Hi, yes.
Great, thank you. We'll get started in a little bit here. I gotta make sure Joel can get on. Are you there, Joel?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right, we'll give it a couple minutes, maybe like 4 more minutes, just in case people are showing up a little late. Thanks for coming. Hello. How are you feeling?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be nap time after this, so it'll be all right.
Oh, I hope you feel better. I appreciate you coming in and, sucking it up for us. It's really, really nice of you.
Thanks for my last minute joining.
Somebody else would do the same for me.
Hey, Lene. How are you?
Hey, thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting us and putting this together.
Of course.
Fantastic.
Are you hanging in there?
Yeah. It's been trying with the doing homeschooling stuff, so we were just wrapping that
Oh,
up.
I bet.
Today, so yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be tough.
Yeah. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Just living the dream here. I can.
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna stop my video because I'm gonna try and eat something before we get started.
Sounds good. Nice to see you.
Okay. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to jump in and introduce themselves, you're more than welcome. I'd love to meet you if I haven't already.
Hey, I'm Christina Rudolph, and I just joined you guys.
Wow.
So thanks.
A few people in the airport.
Thanks for joining.
In the neighborhood.
I'm actually in Michigan, and I'm relocating to Minnesota as soon as this COVID thing goes away. But I like that we can connect with all different UXers around the United States right now. So kind of a plus.
Yeah, that is definitely a plus here that we can do the more virtual stuff now and offer things to people all around the world. So yeah, that is definitely a positive. Thanks for joining. Well, while we're just waiting another couple minutes to get started, I'm Lene, if any of you have not met me yet. I'm one of the co-organizers for the UX Newbies, the Denver UX Newbies. We also have Ryan and Chelsea on the call. So I don't know if they're around to say hello, but they're my co-organizers. Oh, there's Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Anyway,
Hey, thanks for coming. So we're here for you. If anyone needs some support during all of this time of uncertainty, we're hoping to have some more virtual events coming soon. So keep an eye out for those. Hopefully in May, at least, we'll have one more for you. So I'm just going to get started with kind of going over some things for the beginning here. If you haven't noticed already, there is an option to comment or ask questions in the chat. So you feel free to put your questions in there. Joel's going to be checking that and making sure he's answering those questions as we go along. So there's that. We're also recording this whole call. So if you need to refer back to this at a later time, I'm going to put the link on the message board in our meetup group. So the format is going to be, Joel's going to go over some tips of portfolio tips. And then I think we have 6 portfolios for review. And he's just going to go through those as well. And with that, he wanted me to give a disclaimer. This is just one man's opinion, so take that for what it's worth. And I always say you should probably get a couple different opinions on your portfolios. So it's really great information. Joel has reviewed my portfolio, and I thought he had some great things to say about it. So I definitely think that he has great feedback, but also to look for other feedback as well. All right, so Joel, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for coming. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Joel. I'm going to read this because it's a lot. So Joel's experience is in user experience research. He has about 8 years of experience. He was formerly homeless in New York City. And with that, he found his way through film school and then back into studying human factors and psychology at the Old Dominion University. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, in his career, he has helped start a tech startup. He built the qualitative research department at United Healthcare, and most recently was the user experience research lead at Lowe's Home Improvement. Joel has been offering to help UX bootcamp graduates on LinkedIn because he recognizes that there is a lack of information on how to present portfolios in a way that hiring managers want to see them. We're often left wondering why we got a rejection letter when we apply for jobs, and that can be really frustrating. So he's here for help, and he truly wants to offer support to our UX community on LinkedIn, so we can be better informed on that. So feel free to connect with Joel on LinkedIn or myself as well, just to stay part of this community. We really appreciate you being here today. So Joel, I'm going to leave this up to you now. Are you ready to go?
I'm marshaling the power. Let me share the screen. We'll just jump right in because 6 portfolios in an hour is going to be a tricky thing. So let's see what we can get completed here. Come on, you crummy thing. All right, who can see? Tell me when you see it.
See it.
I can see it.
Got it.
Roger that. All right.
Roger.
All right. So I'm just going to run through them. And like she said, one man's opinion. Don't take it for gospel. You are well within your rights to be like, this old man is crazy. I don't want to change anything. More power to you. I will also say that I've come down with a bit of a bug. So if I sound hoarse or like I'm not all there, I'm very sorry about that ahead of time. Okay, well, let's get into it here. Melissa Cat. Koch Cat. Okay. All right, cool. Now, I will say that I'm looking at these cold, so I didn't want to look at them ahead of time and analyze them ahead of time. So it would be as though you were applying for something at Lowe's or United Healthcare, that I'd just be seeing your portfolios for the very first time. So there's nothing, I'm literally reading as we go here. Okay, first thing, if we're talking about an about me, right? As somebody that hires UXers, I don't necessarily need to know where you've been in your career or where you want to go. What I want to know is about you. What are your hobbies? What is your culture like? How many languages do you know? Do you adopt kittens that don't meow, or cats or dogs with no tails, or whatever that looks like? Do you like playing basketball? I don't know, any of that stuff, really. As a hiring manager, I have like 5 minutes in between meetings when I get a person's portfolio and or resume, because sometimes they don't come together. I've got like 5 minutes between meetings to just kind of glance at it and figure out 3 things, right? One is, are you going to be right for my team, or, for the overall, right? Second thing is, do you know your stuff? And the third thing is, are you going to be a good culture fit? Now, for me, culture fit comes in the about me page, right? You can have a picture, you don't have to have a picture. It doesn't matter to me. What I care about more than anything is, can you present yourself as a human being and not as a machine that's going to warm a chair and do a job? That's all, that's what the about me page, I think, should be about. We'll move along here. And skills, code. Good, love it. Good times. Holy mackerel. Okay. I would just say that the type is just a little bit small for me. I'm getting on an age, and my ability to read small type is not great any longer. I suppose I could bring it up and zoom it a bit. Yeah, that's a little better. More work. Okay. I'm just going to throw this out here. For 4 pages now, we've seen their work and their resume, but on the first page, there's a link for the resume. I think you can probably cut out most of that resume that you just saw if you just present a resume and it has all that stuff listed in it. I've never been of the school where one has to say one thing over and over and over again in order to get the point across. So if your resume is a resume, then there shouldn't be any need for you to call it out in a portfolio. Because more than likely, if you've sent an application to me or to my department, it should have a portfolio and a resume in it. All right. Designer, Adobe XD. Nope. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So one thing that I've noticed on a lot of portfolios, and I've seen probably over 100 at this point, there is a disconnect between font size and color. If it's me, I would much rather see black on white than light gray on white, because that is just challenging for my eyes to look at. But let's run with it anyway. Entered this project so anyway, it was 2 weeks. Okay. That's a lot of words there. Yeah. Let's see how it develops. Okay. I don't know if there's supposed to be a chart here or what that's supposed to look like. Huh. Okay. Well, there's definitely a difference between the before and after, right? Huh. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So again, little tiny type. I would love to see those blown up a little bit. I do like, however, that whoever this person is, and I don't know any of these folks, by the way, so I don't have any relationships with them whatsoever. So I like that they're not killing me with a bunch of writing. Their stories their pictures tell the story, and I think that's actually a really good thing if you're a designer, right? If you're a designer, you don't want to kill people with a bunch of writing. You want your pictures to tell the story. A bit like an illustrator, I'd say. Okay, so at the end of that presentation for that last one, do we have a good idea as to what this person did for this project? And I'll leave that to you. I don't know. I think the photos are very small. I'm not sure what I'm looking at exactly, and I think that'd be probably something that I'd ask in the interview is, can you take me through some of these screens as to what all this actually means? So that's interesting. All right, so Dish 2020, here we go. Old Dish Network, right? Or maybe that's Dish Network, I don't know. All right. Okay, so here's what I love about this. The duration is dead on right. In enterprise, and this is especially true if you're new to UX and if you happen to come out of boot camps. For whatever reason, and I've never figured out why, but boot camp professors tend to tell you that projects take 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 2-week sprints or whatever that is. The truth of the matter is that for a full-on redesign, it will generally take anywhere from 2 to 6 months if you're doing it right. That's all the meetings, that's all the usability testing, that's all the design, that's all the architecture, generative interviews, on and on and on. It takes a long time. Now, it moves fast. It really does move fast. But to do the entire thing, the way that they would have you write some of your portfolios, the timeline is a dead giveaway as to whether or not you know what you're talking about or not. Now, 2-week sprints, that's one thing, right? So if you're in UX research, as this person says they are, their role as a UX researcher. If you do a 2-week sprint, you're expected to have done at least some of the research around the project that's going to be done in the sprint, according to what's on the backlog. And then that gets reported out. Now that really does take 2 weeks, but that's only one little teeny tiny iteration of that overall project. So if you're a boot camper, if you graduated from General Assembly or something like that, and you have somewhere in your portfolio that it took you 2 weeks to do a full redesign, that's almost a dead giveaway that you didn't actually do that for a client. That wasn't actual professional work. In other words, that's schoolwork, not actual, I did this for a company type of thing. All right, so UX research, here we go. Stakeholder interviews, user interviews, secondary research, surveys, contextual, that's a lot. 2 months, that's a lot, okay. By the way, competitive analysis is a market research thing. I don't know why they have UX researchers do it in some companies. It's not a UX research thing. You're not polling users, in other words. Your competitive analysis is more of a market research thing. I don't know why they do that, but there it is. Okay. Service design blueprint. Oops, so sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Again, little tiny boxes, little tiny pictures. I'm gonna try and blow it up here. I still can't really tell what's in the boxes. This again would be something I'd ask about in this person's interview. Like, can you walk me through? Yeah, that doesn't help either. I can just barely make out the type. So whoever this person is, if you could blow this up a little bit, even if there's a side scroll associated with it like there is here, that'd be immensely helpful. Or help darken up the boxes a little bit, make the type a little bigger. Have mercy on an old man, please. All right, let's go along here. Internal client. My guess is that when I see internal client, that's, so you were a designer in this one. Just my opinion, right? If you're going to be a designer, if you're going to bill yourself as a UX UI designer, do your portfolio as though you are only a UX UI designer. If you're going to be a researcher, only do your portfolio in terms of UX research, UX architect, UX writing, UX, whatever it is. There's a reason for this. In large enterprises, we all have very specific swim lanes, right? So for me to do UX design as a researcher, I'm going to step on toes. And you step on toes in enterprise, somebody's going to complain. Somebody complains, that creates drama. Drama never works well in teams, ever. So if you want to be a UX designer, simply be a UX designer. Don't do research, don't do architecture, don't do writing, don't do content management, none of that. You're a designer, that's all you are. Typically speaking, in large enterprises, generalists don't get jobs. I've only heard of one in the last 6 months where a generalist got a lead position, one time. And that was for, who was it for? I can't remember, go figure. Anyway, so try to streamline yourself as best as you can, because generally speaking, enterprise wants you to do one thing really, really well and nothing else. Now, you might be good at 10 things, but I, as an employer, as a team leader, I'm only going to pay you to do one thing. I would much rather see you get paid for doing 10 things really well, but enterprise only has the budget for you to do one. So be mindful of that. I appreciate that designers do research, and I appreciate that some researchers know how to do design, and that's wonderful. But if I'm trying to get hired for a position, I really want to put across to the hiring manager that I do one thing really, really well. And I'll probably only do that one thing really, really well because that's all the enterprise is going to want to pay me for. Besides that, specialists get more money than generalists do, by and large, right? And that's, we're talking big enterprises, over 100,000 employees, so on and so forth. This is essentially like going into a hospital and asking a cardiologist how to do brain surgery. Do they probably know some things about it? Sure they do. Their specialty is the heart. They really only do hearts. So don't ask them to do brain surgery. This is the difference between research and design and architecture and writing and content and all the things that you see in a given pod, as it were. Okay, international client designer. So here we go with the designer again, style tile, love it. I'm a big fan of seeing pen and paper drawings on portfolios because that gives me an insight as to, you know, no good idea ever comes out of being perfectly composed on Figma, right? Or Sketch or whatever. It always starts with like a napkin and a pen, right? We still do things old school. In that we're sitting around and we start doodling and we come up with this lovely little, you know, thing over here. It's wonderful. New design, iteration, sketch, cool. Ooh, pretty. Very nice. Before and after. Okay. That's cool. I don't know. Moving along here. All right. Involvement and inspiration. This should be interesting, right? Holy mackerel. Okay. Community involvement. That's really good, actually. I like that a lot. That actually should be part of your about page. Like, I value people that take time out to volunteer in the UX community to help other UXers out. We don't get through this alone. We have to do it all together. And you'll never find a team of one in any giant enterprise. It just doesn't exist. So that you reach out and you are helping people and giving lectures and doing, you know, community stuff. Hey, that plays a lot into your favor as far as my hiring you goes. Family code night, that's always fun, right? I don't know what some of these other ones are, but good on you for jumping in. Good. This is the about page right here. Outdoors, coffee, sketching. This is what I would expect to see in an about page. Plants, cool, great. Random sightings, love it. Yeah, overall, not bad. Just a couple little tweaks. Little bring the writing up so it's more high contrast so that old boys like myself can read it. That'd be awesome. But overall, really good. All right, let's move on to the next one. And Lene, feel free to jump in if people have questions. I can't see bollocks. I can't see where people have asked questions or anything like that.
So far, so good.
Okay. Let me.
So I just want to thank you so much for that feedback. That was actually, this is Melissa.
Oh, was that yours?
That was mine. Thank you so much.
Let me share the screen again. Hi there. Nice to meet you finally. Let's see here. Okay. Share. Tell me when it comes up. Everybody see it? You got it? Okay.
Got it.
Thanks
Yeah,
for the
it's up.
thumbs up. Appreciate it. I don't know what y'all can see. Okay, so I actually know this person. We're friends on LinkedIn. So, there we go. So I'm getting rid of bias right off the bat, which is a good thing in UX research. All right, so Miss Tracy, here we go. Visual communication and design. Curiosity about things. Again, this doesn't tell me who you are. This tells me about what you want to do in your position. It tells me what you have a fascination with UX research around. That's awesome. I love to see that. But I'd really love to know about what your favorite kind of coffee is or the biggest fish you caught or something like, just something along those lines. Again, because this opening page should be about you and not about your job or not about where you aspire to be or any of that, really. It just needs to be about you. So I won't beat a dead horse here. And I'm so sorry for my for my hiccups and whatnot. Okay, portfolio. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. I love the quote. Greg Burdenstein, top notch, rock on. This is great. There's 2 projects here. If I've got 5 or 10 minutes between meetings, I don't have to go through 9 different projects to figure out if you know your stuff. I would rather see 1 or 2 where you're just a rock star and not 9 projects that say what you see a lot in boot camp portfolios is they have between 3 and 4 projects, and every one of them is basically the same project with different names. And I'm not sure, and I've never taught at General Assembly or anything. I don't teach at boot camps at all, and so I don't know why they tell them to do that for jobs. I have never figured it out. But I would much rather see 1 project where you were just amazing, right? That tells me everything that I need to know surrounding your breadth of knowledge around research or design or whatever else, right? So they do this very well. I've only got 5 or 10 minutes to look at it. Here's 2 projects. We'll take the first one. Or you know what? We'll do fresh dolls. That looks cool. We'll try that. Website redesign case study. Cool. Nice splash page. Big. Easy to read. Love it. Company. Okay, this is just me, right? So when I read something like the challenge, the fix, my role, etc., good problems, right, are backed by UX research, right? So if I open a page and I see the challenge and the fix, it's a clear sight to me that that it's out of order, right? The fix should be at the bottom, right? Because otherwise, why are we doing all of the work, right? If we already know what the fix is, right? Just go do the fix then, right? If you know how to fix it, go fix it, right? Instead, it should be like a progression of generative interviewing says that users find a site is too clumsy and the buttons are too small and out of order and generally confusing and they terminate after a certain point, right? That's good generative research, right? And here's the screens where everybody terminates. And there's a term for that actually, and it's called transactional volatility. It's a great little phrase, right? It's 2 words. Transitional or transactional volatility. And what it means is that your user is reaching a certain point in your user flow where they get so confused they just exit out and quit. And most analytics programs, Google and Wix and whoever else, Weebly, you know, they track that information. That's a good analytic to figure out if your redesign is functional or not. Because like if it cuts out at a certain point, that's probably where you want to look to maybe tweak something, right? And your dev team should be able to see that. They'll get little Jira tickets that says, you know, flags, you know, where it's at. And then you'll do research on that and off you'll go running. Sorry. So the fix should appear at the bottom, right? So here we go. Research and discovery. I believe a good website redesign. Okay, that's a fair point, right? So I'm reading the little light blue section up there. I think this should be what greets you as you start moving down, because this tells me that research actually is backing the problem. I don't need the top 4 points then. I can just see, oh, you know, research is backing the design. Good research, good user research drives good design every time, 1,000 times over, whatever. And it works. And a lot of people don't know that. You'll get into these, well, that's another story. Sometimes as a UX researcher or designer, you have to be the ambassador for why user experience is so crucial to an overall design. Because for so long, these large companies have just had IT development teams just pushing stuff out as fast as they can and then fixing whatever's wrong with it after the fact. UX basically makes the argument that if you do enough pre-game, right, you won't have to do all the fixes on the back end. In other words, the user will tell you what they expect to see, and therefore you'll be able to design it and then code it seamlessly without having to rush through sprint after sprint after sprint after sprint of fixing little tweaks that should have been done or would have been discovered as a user tells you in the beginning. And it's probably one of the hardest things about UX is having to be the ambassador for that process, because to us, right, it's so logical, it's common sense. But to somebody who's been an IT dev for 20, 25 years, you know, the old guard, as it were, of how products used to be created and pushed out. That's a really hard thing to come around to, because it requires a shift in focus away from push to what does our user want? How can we code it? How do we tweak it afterwards, right? And then you'll see as you get, and this is for you new folks, when you get into enterprise, like your first few times of presenting to these folks then IT dev, they'll get very upset with you because what they perceive you're saying is that their system that they've been doing for 20 years is dead wrong. And so it takes a great deal of empathy and a great deal of high amounts of communication to kind of level set with those folks. And it will help you in the end. Anyway. Okay, website audit, great. Go take users through it. Stakeholder interviews, always important. Love that. Quant and qual, I typically shy more towards qualitative because I've got numbers dyslexia. I can't, numbers jump around. This is why I didn't become a doctor, as it turns out. Quantitative helped me understand the what, on and on and on, right? Just me, right? If I've only got a few minutes to read, this is telling me what I already know. Like, I know what unmoderated testing is. I've done this for 8 years now. I know what moderated testing is. I know what thinking out loud is. I'm familiar with all of that. You shouldn't need to tell me what that is or why you do it. I pretty well get it down. Now, if you want to include like what your sample questions were, or some of the, you know, what I asked and why I asked it, and that sort of thing in very short form, or even bullet points. Hey, that means that you value my time as a hiring manager in between meetings. I can just boom, 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 boom down the list. Perfect. Love it. And if I want to know other details, I'll be sure to ask you in your interview, because if you value my time, I'm probably going to give you an interview or grant you one or make you earn one, right? Data analytics. So like I could just have the part of the red, you know, the red portion here, and the rest of it I could, you know, I'll ask about it if I want to know. And we have some font issues here. I don't know what that word is behind that precedes doll. I think it says because the doll market, maybe. I suspect that if you're going to present your portfolio, little things like this, little, you know, issues are corrected. So if I see these, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they weren't quite ready to present it yet. Just little tweaks. So this is a lot of writing for me, and and this is, okay, so personas by and large are not UX research. They're UX design. I've seen architects that do personas, but mostly it's designers that do personas, because personas are driven by research, but ultimately they're what people design around. So designers write their own personas in order to, based on the research that's been gathered. It's just an order of operations thing. And this, like, and then to find persona, it works, right? Key findings and insights. Okay. I don't mind next steps. I think those are great. Post-implementation, this is a lot of writing, right? I know what an A and B test is. My thing is this, like, if you haven't done an A and B test and you would do one later on, don't put it in. Because then I think, oh, they ran out of time, or oh, the contract ended and they failed to complete it, or whatever it is. Like, I've never been a fan of like to be continued, or this is ongoing, or something like that. Everything is ongoing, right? And there's no project that's ever finished, right? So if it's me, right, and I'm a UX researcher, I've like 5 big points I'm trying to cover. Background on the project, who we want to study, what methodologies we want to use, findings, and then conclusions, next steps. That's it. 5 slides, in and out, you're done. Takes all of like 15 minutes to present it, and you're out. And that's literally the only time you have to convey findings and things to your stakeholders. So very, very short amount of time. In other words, most stakeholders are not going to be able to read through all this and get a sense of what research means to their project, right? Or whatever that is, whatever they're owning. In conclusion, what I learned. So again, you know, this is very easily done just in like 2 pictures and like 6 next steps, or 5 recommendations, 3 next steps, 2 pictures, done, right? All this writing, I'm never going to read it. I'll just be straight with you. I think it's lovely. I think Tracy writes beautifully. I probably won't read it, just because I don't have the luxury of time to where I can sit there in the middle of my day and figure out, you know, if this is all, you know, do this with your portfolio. Do the page down test. I should not, nobody should have to hit page down more than like 2 or 3 times, right? So let's do it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, so 11. So what can we deduce from this? It's probably a little long, little, it's very well written, right? And I commend people for writing well, but it's only written well if there's a reader to appreciate it. And I'm, as a hiring manager, I've got a very, very limited amount of time. And by the way, probably 250 other portfolios and resumes for the same job that I have to look at, right? And decide who among those 250 do I grant a first round, a second round, third round interview with. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll go back up here. And just for time's sake, I'm not going to do the other project. I'm going to presume it looks similar. So we'll do the resume. Let's do the resume. Oh, cool. So it popped right
Nope,
up.
it looks quite different, Joel. Sorry.
Oh, it is? Okay. Well, all right. Well, let's go back.
I'd rather you do that than look at the resume
Fair enough.
really
All right.
quickly.
All right. No, that's fine. I serve you. You're not here for me. I'm here for you. Okay. So we'll do uplift real quick. Book now, pay later, UX research, something or other. This chat window's blocking it. Payment option built for 2. Click there. And it comes up as a PDF. Okay, 19 pages of PDF. Here we go.
You can do the click down test real quick.
Well, no, you want me to look at it, I'm going to look at it. You see, I don't want to lessen your time here. Okay, I see tons of writing, main motivation. So this is just my own picadillo. You're a researcher, right? You shouldn't have a main motivation. You should have your user's motivation at heart. Your entire existence is to be the advocate and ambassador for your user. So while it's great that you have a motivation to do this project, whatever it is, and I haven't even looked all the way down through it yet, but unless your user's driving the motivation for why you're doing this, essentially you're wasting time. Early in the discovery page. Oh, wow. Okay. So if it's me, like research objective, research methods, competitive analysis, again, is marketing. This would be very well served if you had just like a 5-slide deck, right? Background, just those 5 points again. That would make it a lot, like you could do one for, pre-research, right? So you have a research proposal, which if you can show me that you know how to write a research proposal well, it's huge. And I almost never see it on UX researchers' portfolio, almost never, which I've never understood because it's such an essential part of the job. It is a contract between research and design with the payment of the user needs, tantamountly, if that's a word, in the balance, right? Here's another one that I see a lot on portfolios that just annoys me to no end. If you're going to do bold writing, because that's what you want me to pay attention to, get rid of the rest. I can't even read the light type that you don't want me to pay any attention to. Rather, you want me to pay attention to the bold writing. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, context, fine, I get it, great. But if you don't want me to pay attention to the lighter type, why even put it in? You'll cut pages off your portfolio if you just do bullet points of main, you know, topics that you want me to pay attention to. Otherwise, it's just like focuses on direct to consumer layaway plans. Okay. What does? And then if you read the short type, or like the small type and very faded, you know, type, then you get the idea. I mean, it doesn't make logical sense. Constraint alert, fine. I don't know why that's. In lieu of real or actual Uplift users, I had to get creative in finding data, so I conducted moderated phone interviews with segments of people who could. Okay, so we're not actually testing real users here. This is made up or something. All right, direct quotes, great. So in this one, you know, what would be great is if I could see if you had recordings or transcripts or video of you actually performing these with users, because so much of user research is about being able to pull insights out of people on a one-to-one basis in front of them. And if you get that on tape of that insight generation, it plays a hell of a lot better than just reading it, you know, point by point with quotations. For all I know, you made them up. That sounds awful. And I know you, Tracy, and you're a great person. I'm not saying that you did, right? But there are people out here who think that UX sounds really cool and will make up quotations that make it sound like this is what users are saying. Unless you have like actual tape, right, or transcript.
Well, on the 2 slides above, I did get some actuals. Right there.
My point is if you could embed like a video here, good stuff, right? And then I can hear it from the user's mouth.
Okay.
Visualizing the user journey is UX design, not research. Now you can say, I had a designer put this together for me, I'll buy that, right? But for a researcher to do user journeys or user journey mapping, not really the thing. And that's just in large enterprise. For small, itty bitty enterprises, it could be totally different. I've never really I've worked for tech startups, but that tech startup was like worldwide. So we had people in India and Madagascar and South Africa and other places. So if you put us all in one office, it would have been a really big company. But neither here nor there. Okay, so we have screens. And this and that, and the other thing. And again, you know, reflections. Like, it's 19 pages that could be cut down to like 7, right? If you go with bullet points and embedded video and, you know, just case studies, right? You'd probably serve yourself a lot better, especially if you want a hiring manager to look at it, right? That'll probably play better for you than having to, you know, scroll through 19 different slides. Okay, so I think we can call that one good to go. Tracy, you okay with that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I think I'm really a designer just acting like a researcher.
Well, no, and that's a good thing to know. Like, that's a good thing to learn about yourself early on. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to get hired for United Healthcare or Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that as a researcher, and then find out that indeed the entire time that you've been billing yourself as a researcher, you're actually a designer. If you're going to design, do design, right? Research is not the most glamorous thing in the world. Like, if you like glamorous, doing really good graphic artwork and you love to design according to the rules of human factors ergonomics, hey, more power to you. That's not me. I like sitting in the background and like advocating for users. That's my thing. So if you know that you're a designer that thinks they're a researcher but really should stick to design, do your portfolio like that, because it'll pay off huge dividends.
Yeah.
But again, Don't kill them with writing. Seriously, I've got very little time in my day, along with all the other ones I have to look at, to read through all that, especially with like very, very light type. Come up with a message, stick to that message, be as brief and concise as you can. Otherwise I'll realize that you're having me scroll through 19 slides, and I'll just read the first 5 slides and throw it.
Okay, thank
You know
you.
what I mean?
Thank you.
Concise, succinct.
Hey,
Okay.
Joel,
Yes.
we have a bunch of questions coming up
Okay.
here.
Shoot.
Do you want me to ask you them, or
Yeah.
do you want to check them out?
Nope. Come on.
Okay, so we'll start with the ones that were on this past one. Let's see. Start here. Okay, so one of the questions is, in this portfolio, it says, I already had a theory about what was wrong. Should assumptions be stated? So should you say things like that? Or is UX about keeping yourself at a distance so you can gather data rather than work off those assumptions?
So this is going to sound like a very UX researcher answer, and I'm sorry ahead of time for it. It depends. And here's why. If I'm going into a project with assumptions already and I'm a designer, that's okay. If I'm a UX researcher, however, I can have assumptions, but I shouldn't really call them out, because it's not my job to call out assumptions for a design team. Rather, I should go and ask the user. And if you learn nothing else from me in user research, right? When you go to work on, whenever I'll get back to work, go ask the user. I cannot tell you how powerful that ends up being in the long run. The more you ask users, the more user-centered the design, the more intuitive the movements are to get from point A to point B in the most succinct amount of time.
Cool.
Okay, what's next?
Let's see. So there's definitely some questions about how to tell that story. I know you said this in mine as well. So like when you want to tell your story for your, like what you did, your process, how do you do that in a way that isn't giant blocks of text and things like that? How do you, voice that process without making it too much, basically?
So try this sometime. Ready? Take down all the words in your profile. If you're a designer, take out all the words, right? Now, can you tell me a story, or can I tell the story you're trying to tell based on your designs? And if yes, awesome. Leave the words out, because that is, I should be able to tell a flow. Like, keep in mind, I've got a few years doing this. I should be able to tell, like, where you were pre-designed to the end result, right? Over 3 or 4 months' time, right? I know, like, the steps, right? So pen and paper, and then you do some user testing around that, and then wireframes, and you do user testing around that, and there's generative, and on and on and on, right? So as long as I see design with a research component, and then design, and then a research component, and then design, hey, I can tell a story off that, because I've probably done that in my own work, right? Writing what you presume people want to know about whether or not you know your stuff or not is a little like me going to Pavarotti and instructing him on how to sing Italian opera, right? He's been doing it longer than I have. There's a good chance he already knows what I'm going to say, right? So if you have to write anything, and there are times when you should, right? If there's a break between, like a lo-fi and a hi-fi, right? Like, how did you get there? And you don't want to just say, we did usability testing and you don't have any videos around it. Totally understand that. It happens, right? Just do bullet points, main ideas, high-level stuff. Because in your interview, I will sit there and go, tell me about what happened in between your lo-fi and your hi-fi. Tell me what that process looked like, right? What separates a junior from a senior, honest to God, 100% of the time. Process, point of view, that's it. You develop those 2 things, you're a senior. But the only way you get to that point is through a lot of practice and a lot of designs and a lot of iterations, right? If you can tell me your process in between lo-fi and hi-fi without killing me with a bunch of text, I mean, that means that you understand what you're doing, in which case there's no reason why I shouldn't hire you.
So what about for researchers? So you probably don't have as many visuals to put in your research portfolio. So how do you make that user-friendly to view?
Well, so essentially in research, what you're talking about is essentially those big five, right? Who are we studying, right? What do we want to know? What do we want to learn? What methodologies are we using? What did we learn? And then what did we instruct the designers to do on behalf of the user, right? And those are just big bucket things, right? Now, methodologies you can go into a little bit, but keep in mind, I've done probably 1,000 card sorts in my time, right? I know how to do them. I don't necessarily need you to tell me how you do your card sort. I've probably done it your way before, right? So if you can come up with like a picture of here's the card sort, right? And this is what our user wants to, this is the tree test, right? And you do them up on a big board. Perfect. Love it. I know exactly what I know what you did before. I know what the test, probably sounded like or looked like if you have video, and the end result, right? And you get these lovely, whiteboards of Post-it notes. If you're a UX researcher, go invest in Post-it notes, 3M, go buy stock, because you'll use tons of those things. Excuse me, go on. What's the next one?
This one was asked a bit ago when you were talking about how people don't hire generalists and things like
Yes.
that. So if we're applying to all kinds of different openings for large companies and small companies, does the specialized approach stand true? And lots of smaller companies seem to have job postings for generalists. So what's a good balance?
I mean, it depends on where do you want to work, right? I like large enterprises because I don't have to worry about budgetary constraints. Like if I want to onboard a vendor that does really good recruiting, like Fieldwork or Schlesinger, or TRC, or whoever else, right? I don't have to worry about, begging and pleading somebody for money. It's just there, right? If you like working for startups and you want to be a generalist and that's what you think you are meant to do, don't let me stop you. God knows they need help, right? Go do it and enjoy it with my blessing, right? No problem at all. But in my experience working for really big companies, generalists generally don't get jobs because you have those very, very succinct swim lanes that you really need to stay within the bounds of. Now you're all swimming in the same direction, right? But you all have very specific parts to play within that overall project.
Okay. Would you suggest having two different portfolios? So, if you are interested in both research and design, for example, and you're applying to both types of jobs, would you suggest having two different portfolios to submit to that?
Sure, why not? Like the thing is that I find that, like if you're applying to be a researcher with me, I want to see your research chops only. Right? I think it's wonderful. Like I talk to people all the time who have their backgrounds in the early days of graphic design, which are wonderful people. I mean, they're so creative and they do like collages and amazing things with their mouths, right? That's all well and good, but if I'm looking at you for a UX architecture position, I want to know that you know how to blueprint more than do pretty things with colors. So yeah, if you want to have two, have two. If you want three, have three, fine. So long as there's a specificity and a succinctness about what you're presenting, because really try and value a hiring manager's time. That'll get you in the door quicker than, knowing all this stuff and telling them, word vomiting all over your pages.
Okay, great. Let me see, there's a few more. Okay, this is kind of related to that. So how does one transition if you are stereotyped as a visual designer, but you want to focus more on like analytical and working with users?
Okay. I mean, how do you demonstrate transition? I think is what.
Yeah, I guess if you say you start as a visual designer, but you maybe want to get into research or something like that, how would you transition your portfolio? Like maybe all of your experience is in visual design, but now you have some experience in research and that's what you want to focus on. How might you transition that to show that you have UX experience?
Just like that. Exactly like you just said. Like every project has different elements to it, right? So there's design, there's research, there's architecture, there's writing, there's content management, there's quantitative, qualitative, where's some of the other ones, right? Market research, that's our cousin, our big cousins. You know, each one of these projects have these different elements to it. So if you participated in more than one, right, you can show a very kind of gradual switch over. Like when I first got started, I really wanted to do like glamorous design and follow Gestalt rules around human factors and ergonomics and like put that into my designs. I failed miserably. So I had to take my design work and explain how I did research underlying it, right? And that launched a career into user research. There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. There really isn't, believe it or not. If you feel like you're being called in a different direction, I encourage you to go that direction. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know, I did this for a long time. I got bored with it. I lost interest. I'm tired of it. I guarantee there'll come a time when I will get so tired of talking to users, I'll just want to move to France and paint. I don't know. Like, there will come a time though. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it, and then, you know, evangelize as hard as you can.
Cool. So real quick, a couple more. How many pieces would you say should be in a portfolio? This person is saying that they've heard maybe 9 for a senior role. What do you think for both junior and senior?
I mean, and this is just me, right? If you're applying for a senior researcher and you've got 2 portfolio pieces or portfolio, because researchers don't really have portfolios necessarily. But if you're going for a senior design role and I can see that you've got process and point of view in 2 projects, I don't need 9 to prove it. Like that doesn't, I can very easily call or link up with one of my friends on LinkedIn and be like, let's suppose you're a designer who worked at the Home Depot or something like that. And you were Aetna or CVS or whoever else, right? Very easily I can get them on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I got this such and such a person. They said they worked on, you know, this particular project. You know, true or false, or how do you think, you know, this is what they showed me. What do you think? We talk all the time. Like UX is one of those great industries where everybody knows somebody else and who's worked with, you know, another guy, you know, somebody up on the chain. And we talk to each other all the time about people that are applying to positions with us. Because it's a really good indication of what kind of a culture fit you're going to be if you're going to, you know, cause waves or be dramatic or whatever, right? That's good to know. Like I don't want to mishire somebody because it costs a lot of money to onboard people. And that's 60 grand for onboarding. That comes out of somewhere. Anyway, is there any other questions or should I go on or?
I have a couple more, but I think I'm going to let you do this portfolio and then maybe we can go over the next questions.
If there's only a couple, I'm happy to answer them right quick.
Well, this one might take a minute. Well, I'll just ask you and I guess you can maybe go through it as we go along or answer it now if you'd want. It's about just general tips and or general mistakes you see often in portfolios. And what else did they say? Hold on. I just lost it. Okay. Any top common mistakes you see when you're reviewing portfolios or anything that you might like to see more of?
One more time. I'm so sorry. I was answering a message from.
It's okay. So is there any like anything you'd like to see more of in portfolios when you're reviewing, or any common mistakes?
And common mistakes are so tiny that it's almost, what you really need is to sit down with somebody like me or Lene or whoever else, right? And
Not
it doesn't, anyone, and I don't care who it is, really. You know, sit down with somebody. They don't have to be hugely experienced in anything UX. They can be something unrelated to UX. Go ask a friend. Go ask an enemy. Have a look at my portfolio. What do you think? And ask them to provide you like genuine feedback, right? Don't spare my feelings. If it looks terrible, say so, right? You'll find, you know, over, you know, 5 or 6 people, you're going to find 85% of your like little mistakes, right? Great example, take Tracy's portfolio that we just saw around the dolls, right? 5 or 6 people are probably going to pick up the two size fonts run into one paragraph, right? It doesn't take a lot of users to review a portfolio to be like, hey, you might want to fix that, right? So just ask people. We're all here to help each other. We're all here to have empathy with one another, because as much as we do our thing, we started out once exactly where the newbies are. So we have no choice but to empathize with your plight and help you as best as we can. What's next?
Well, I just wanted to sidebar on that one. So, I mean, is there anything that when you're reviewing a lot of different portfolios, is there anything you're thinking like, I really wish I saw this more often, or like this one really stood out because of this reason?
Less writing. Like the ones that stand out are the ones that don't write a lot, because they have the expectation that I'm going to want to ask them about it in the interview. Right?
Okay.
I think there's a compulsion, and I don't, and never been to a General Assembly class. I don't know if they tell people to do this, but I feel like there's a compulsion to tell me everything about a project in order to create a narrative story that's going to be fun and interesting to read, that tells you at the same time that I know what I'm talking about and I'd be a good fit. I don't know who tells people to do this. I don't think it's right at all. I think if you're a designer, your pictures should show your story, right? I started here. User research told me that I needed to design this, and then here's the progression of it, and we ended up here, and our next steps and recommendations for the dev team are X, Y, and Z, right? That doesn't take a lot of writing, or it shouldn't, right? Because I'm already doing it in my day-to-day. I should know, right? This would be like, so my dad's a physician, right? I don't need to tell him how to do a catheterization, right? He's done thousands of them, right? If I show him pictures, he knows exactly where I am in his process flow. You know what I mean? So do that. Less writing stands out to me more than clever copy. If you want to do clever copy, there are innumerable amounts of copywriting jobs you can go get. And they are amazing people that can do copy. I have tried, I've failed miserably. Because I'm like you, I want to tell people everything they need to know in one shot, and it's all context, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm a terrible copywriter.
Definitely difficult to figure out. I'm struggling with that as well, so I get it. So one more question, and then I'll let you move on to this portfolio. It's
Side story real quick.
after reviews.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What's the question?
Okay, so this is for after reviews. How do you prove your value when you've only worked in situations that are small companies or organizations that and you want to do business to business?
Process. Hugely process and point of view. And I'll tell you how I know that. I went from a company of like 400 people, which was Unity HyperNet, that were scattered around the world. And we used a lot of Google Talk or a lot of Google Translate to get our points across. I worked for nonprofits who were on a shoestring, who I was basically the generalist because I was the only person who knew what UX was in that organization. And this guy from United Healthcare named Cody Fleischfresser, which if you know German, Fleischfresser means carnivore. So Cody the carnivore comes in and picks me up and says, I've looked at your portfolio. This is an old portfolio, right? Not the one I have now, but I've looked at your process and your point of view, and I like what I see. So why don't you come work for us? And I learned two things from that. One is that as long as you know process and you have a point of view of how your research impacts design, that the rest is gravy, right? The other thing that I learned is that when you get your first job in big enterprise, they lowball you so bad. Like after a couple, like 6 weeks, I was like, boy, y'all got me cheap. I don't know. Like they were paying $120,000, $130,000 for one usability test. And I won't tell you how much I was earning at the time, but I wrote to Cody and I was like, man, y'all got me cheap. I should have rang you up for a couple more dollars. That's how much you're spending on one test. Oh my God. Anyway, side note about the writing thing. My first emails in United Healthcare, I actually got in trouble for because I would write like paragraphs of context and here's why you need to know all this stuff. And Cody was like, we're totally okay with bullet points. You don't have to do all this stuff. And that was my lesson fought the hard way, right? Is don't kill people with writing. They're not going to read it.
For sure.
And they literally would say, too long, didn't read. Oh,
Right.
really? Too much to ask for you to frickin' read. But yeah, it is. It really is. And I didn't realize that until I got into a hiring manager's position. And then I'm like, oh, God, I'm an idiot. You learn it both on the front side and on the back side. Okay. We ready to move on?
Yep, ready to move on.
Jay Parker Baker. Hi there. I'm Jay Parker. Sorry. Great picture, by the way. There's a weird thing going on with the pupil of your eye in that shot. That's really wild. That's really cool. Okay. Graphic designer and user experience enthusiast. Okay, here we go. I was referencing graphic designers before. Lo and behold, here's the very next one, right? Creator, as long as I can remember, from birdhouses to tree houses, logos. Okay, that's a good introduction. It says download resume. So if I don't want to go through your portfolio, I can just download the resume and go from there. Cool. Totally okay with that. Holy smokes. Professional software knowledge and skills. Okay. How do you prove that? Right. This goes back to how do you want to bill yourself? Like if you want to bill yourself as a designer, like your wireframing should be like 5s across the board, right? InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, Sketch, those are all programs. Everybody's going to have a varying understanding of how those programs work. They're not actual jobs to do on a project. They're just tools that you use. Wireframing, prototyping, visual design, copywriting. Wow. What are you, psychic or something? Those are actual things within a project, right? And so I don't know if you want to separate these out or if you want to like split them into 2 columns and be like, or if you don't even, I don't even know why you want to show this to begin with, right? I presume that if you're billing yourself as a designer and in your portfolio you have low-fi wireframes, mid-fi wireframes. By the way, we rarely see mid-fi wireframes. So if you have them in your portfolio, make sure you call out that mid-fi wireframes come about as a result of a pivot in the middle of a usability test. That's the only place they exist. Otherwise, just to do them is just like, all right, well, fine, great, whatever. It usually goes lo-fi, somewhat higher fi, wireframes, right? More than 2 colors, and then a few more colors, and then, usability test, and that's like the majority of your time spent is doing those usability tests and then tweaking designs and then asking another set of users. Okay. My latest work. Okay. See more. Cool. Just keep going. Experience. So, well, that's kind of a cool graphic. I like timelines like that where they just like fade up. It's like, ooh. All right, we'll go to the portfolio. Okay. Okay, so 3 projects. J. Parker Baker, I see you in the window. Hold up your fingers. Which one says you should hire me? 1 through 3. Hold your fingers up. 3. Okay, so we'll go to 3. Well, come on. That's not helpful.
Yeah, oh, there it goes. I was gonna say, I thought it was working.
Just take over the screen. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Free the Mind Fitness, UX Research, and App Design. Okay. Little type again. Holy cow. Okay, so you put your entire script up here. Well, that's cool. You don't see that a lot. Did you read this word for word to the user? Did you really? Wow. Okay. That's actually a good point. Second paragraph, first sentence, where it says there are no wrong or right answers. I cannot tell you how important that is to stress. Otherwise, you will get nearly the good insights that you're looking for. I tell my users, it's the one time in life for 1 hour that no matter what I say is gospel truth. And they giggle at that. And I'm like, see, you just told me it's funny. Therefore, it's hilarious. And they seem to really resonate with that. I don't know why. Okay. So this is just for this particular one, right? If it's me and I'm looking at this would be okay to where you because you're talking about different screens. I think you are anyway. Take a look at the page, take a look at the page, take a look at the page. Okay, so we're talking about separate pages.
Yes.
It would be okay with, huh?
Yeah, you are. Different.
Okay. So it would be okay with me if you just have like, number 1, here's the screen they're looking at, right? Number 2, here's the screen they're looking at. 3, on down the line. That's the way you tell. Like if we're talking about scripts only, that's how we tell narrative, right? Here's how we do a usability test in lieu of video. So ideally what I'd love to see is like a screen recording of their usability test as you're reading it out in the background. That way I can see what the users actually do it. And vis-a-vis, right? So by virtue of that, I know whether or not you as a researcher know what you're doing. Fundamentally, as an aside, if you're a UX researcher, you want to be a UX researcher, the single greatest gift that you can give your user is silence. It's imperative that we allow our users to talk. And what you'll see is user researchers who carry on a conversation as though they're at a restaurant or something like that. So they're more waiting on their chance to talk rather than waiting on their chance to listen, right? And like, as you get into user research, like away from being a noob to like being more seasoned, you'll have the opportunity to watch a lot of people do their job, right? So it's like it's like having an understanding of jazz, right? So the interview script is our standard, right? It's how everybody else plays it that makes it jazz. So everybody has their own riff on it. If I hear a user researcher that kind of jumps into conversations as they're speaking to a user, I know that they're not very experienced. Because I think user research should have long periods of silence. Just in general. Because there's a human condition that your user will want to fill that space up with sound. And that is where you get the greatest insights from. Seriously, try that sometime in your next user research project. Go beyond, do like pregnant pauses, right? And then go beyond where it would normally be time for you to jump in and see what your user says. And I can almost guarantee you they'll jump in with an insight that they might not have otherwise said it had you as the researcher started talking. Okay, moving on. Yeah, okay. That looks fine. Is that the last page? Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped a bunch, didn't I? Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. Okay. So I'm rather curvy, right? So when I see workout apps with these, Adonises, doing their thing, just once I would love to see a progression of like huge to svelte, that, now we know it works, right? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so in discoveries, you're talking about generative research. It would be great if we had, I don't know, some kind of like, and I don't know how you are at embedding video, but like if you could do like little clips of your generative research. Otherwise, it looks like we're just making up percentages based on like, how did you get that number? Does that make sense? After interviewing potential users, I found that users felt competitors' apps lacked things like nutrition logs, yada, yada, yada. How did you get to that? Like in research, it's all about how you got to your answers. The answers are less important. Well, they're equally as important as to how you got there. Because there are things like bias and there's things like, somebody's microphone's on there. Like it's terribly disconcerting.
So if this was done in a survey, should I have just said that I conducted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and like, don't put the whole survey up, right? But
Right.
here's some high-level questions that we asked.
Okay.
Here are
Cool.
the results we got.
Gotcha.
Okay, so again, user personas or UX design, not research. It's great that you want to have it, but unless I know how many people you interviewed in order to come up with those personas based on your generative research, Jake Heyman could be real, could be, hey man, totally, just a guy.
So if I'm wanting to do more user experience design though, should I keep it?
Sure.
Okay.
But are you a designer or are you a researcher?
Definitely more a designer than a researcher.
Okay. Then maybe take the script out.
Okay.
Right? And say, somebody did research, this is what we found, this is the wireframe that came out of it. Da 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 da, right?
Yeah.
So I like this. In my experience, wireframes are way lower tech than this. These are more like prototype screens and not like wireframes are exactly like they sound. They're like, there's no graphics at all. There's like circles and squares and black and white, right? These are like way more involved than what I would expect to see it as a wireframe. Just my little picadillo there. Style guides are great if you're a designer and or an architect. Like that's a good thing. I know a lot of companies who are looking for designers who do style sheets really, really well because they're starting to understand the importance of having a design archive so that when your designer or when your architect lays the blueprint out for it for dev, you just pull this down and it's already in the same color and here's the font we're going to use and it's just drag and drop. It makes things so much quicker. So style guides, good thing. And we did the user testing thing, right? So, right, okay. And back here. For the original. Ah, here we go. Cool. Okay. Contact you. How often do you get somebody contact you through that?
Did you say how many?
Yeah. How many people you actually contact you through your site?
0.
None. Why do we have it then?
I don't know. We can delete it.
And like I had one on my first portfolio page. I was like, contact me for more work, and nobody ever wrote.
Never.
And I honestly don't know. Like, give me a phone number at the top, and if I want to hire you, I'll hire you that way.
Yeah. Can you just click on the see more under portfolio and just tell me what your thoughts are of that? Because it brings you to like a stack where there's more. So those are like my 3 most recent designs. But the see more has like 9 total.
Holy smokes.
I don't know, is that a good holy smokes or a bad one?
It depends.
Okay.
What is it that you're trying to? So, like, if I was to look at the Free the Mind one, the nutritional thing, like that to me looks like a UX researcher's portfolio piece.
Yeah.
Right. But you just said that you're a designer, like way more design than research.
Right.
Great. Which one of the 9 says I'm a designer, hire me? Because I'm not going to have enough time to sit and look through 9 different projects to see if you know your stuff.
So I would say my portfolio is very, it's very generally, if you will. So I would probably say that first one at the top for M&T Bank. Yeah, that's what I'm working on currently.
And how many months are you into that?
Oh God, we started at the end of May I started with them at the end of May last year. They started this project January of last year.
Okay, so when you do the timeline for it, make sure to call that out.
Okay.
Because then it looks like, oh, you were part of a bigger team. Of course that takes, it's a huge bank. Of course it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Right? If it would have said website redesign in 2 weeks, you'd be like, yeah, right. Okay. Come on, you're pulling my leg, and that's okay, but let's be honest here, you're pulling my leg.
Right.
I like that you actually, I get a lot of calls for financial companies, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Citibank, on and on. So that's awesome that you have it. You'll never be without a job, actually, if you keep in that financial,
All right. Well, tell me with any jobs you've got.
You and me both.
I'm on the lookout.
Yeah, you and me both. Okay, do you want me to look at the M&T one too, or are we
Yeah,
cool
if you want. It's a little bit different because I've written a little bit about it, and then there's 2 prototypes. So I guess if you have thoughts on what else to put in there, I just don't know what else, because the way that they have asked me to do this feels completely backwards. But
okay.
Welcome to corporations.
Yeah, right.
I just have some copy about what I did, and then a mobile and desktop prototype.
So are they Envision prototypes?
Yes.
Okay. Which one do you want me to do, the desktop or the mobile?
No, you can do mobile.
Okay.
That was our focus, so you can definitely do mobile.
Okay. So one thing you're going to find is Envision is lovely, but their prototypes have a how should I say this? They've got a gremlin about them.
Uh-oh.
Oh, good. It's so good. This is going to do this. Okay. This is what I found at Lowe's, because we used to use Envision for our click-through prototypes.
Yeah.
First thing that you notice, right, is that the mouse pointer is gone. Right?
Yeah.
It's a fuzzy circle.
Yeah.
When you click on something, so there's a UX rule, right? There's a UX law, if you will, that upon clicking on something, it should be like, I think it's 0.003 seconds of delay between click and result,
Okay.
right? And I don't remember what the exact number is, but that it's something along those lines. If you go to uxlaws.com, it's a great site. If you're new to UX, go memorize those laws. You'll never go wrong.
Cool. Yeah.
But so Envision has this weird thing where when you click on something, right, it has to go all the way back to Envision servers, right, to register the click. And then it has to come all the way back to your prototype, right? For a lot of users, though, that breaks the 0.0003 or whatever it is time, right? And we know what it is in our head. Like we're familiar enough with web design and things like that to know that when we click something, it should bring something up immediately. Well, with Envision prototypes, it doesn't do that, or at least unless they've improved it since I was at Lowe's, which I don't think they have. But let's play with this and find out. The other thing about the prototypes is that if you click anywhere else on the screen, it'll highlight where you're supposed to click.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. It's like Vegas.
Cheating.
So we'll do checking because nobody has checking accounts anymore. Well, not like paper checks. My dad still sends out paper checks, and I think
My grandpa,
you're out of your cotton picking mine.
he refuses to pay anything online.
Oh
So
my God,
I hear you.
unbelievable. Okay. Oh, do the login. Let's do the login screen. Fundamentally, believe it or not, one of the biggest issues that you'll ever see or biggest like transactional breaks or volatility is with a login screen. I don't know why that is, but more people break down to login screens than anything else. That's especially true for health insurance apps, as it turns out. If your login doesn't go exactly the way you expect it to, because nobody did user testing on it,
Oh boy.
you're calling, like, the calls are just like vitriol. Like they take it very personally if you don't do your login screen right. Okay, so can we log in? Oh, okay, cool.
I don't think you can because it.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
It
Oh,
will.
yeah.
Because that's technically a separate part of our site. Like we don't work on this. So this is just a screenshot with an updated.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'm all right with that.
Here.
So we'll go back. We'll go to the hamburger menu. I was looking at somebody's portfolio yesterday, and instead of a hamburger, like those 3 lines, the hamburger menu, they had a literal hamburger up there, which I thought was genius.
That's hysterical.
Right? Commercial. Okay, so this all looks exactly like I would expect it to, and thank God that the responsiveness has improved on Envision's prototypes, because it literally is just clicking right along. So this is exactly what I expect a design prototype to look like. There's no surprises here. And as far as what your stakeholders want to see from you in terms of your design, you can't control that.
Right.
If you have an interviewer that says, well, this doesn't make any sense, hey, it made sense to the users and the stakeholders liked it.
Yeah.
Talk to them. I'm just a designer here. I don't control anything. I'm just a guy.
I'm just a little pawn.
Yeah, I'm a cog in the machine. I know nothing else. Okay.
So is there anything else in this, like in that section of my portfolio, like for M&T that you would put there other than like the small amount of copy that I have explaining like what our goal for redesigning this website was and then linking to prototypes?
I'm going to try and get back to it. Hold on. Oh, here we go.
You're good.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that probably bigger type and a little bit more contrasty, or maybe darken the background a bit.
Okay.
I like that the prototype fades up. That's really cool. It brings your eye directly to where you want it to be, where you want it to click. I think that's brilliant.
I just like don't know what else to show other than my prototypes, because this has been a very design heavy, like we've done some user testing. I have not been, it was a third party company that was running it.
You
So
remember who it was?
no, I'd have to, but I could find out pretty easily.
It's okay.
Okay. But it was also happening on the East Coast, so I don't know. Because this is an East Coast bank. I'm from Buffalo and had connections there, and now I work remotely from my house in Colorado. It's great.
Lovely.
Until the contract is up, it's great.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
thank God you didn't have to relocate for a contract, because I just did that for Lowe's on my own dime, and it damn near broke me.
Oh, geez.
Oh, my word. Okay. The only thing I would call out is how long you've been working on it. Like, timeline's a big thing.
Yeah, I wrote that down from the other one.
Yeah. Challenges are usually backed by user research.
Yeah.
I don't see any user research in there, so I don't know if you need to put it in there. I think the objective of redesigning the M&T Bank site to be warmer and more friendly and more accessible,
Okay.
that's a challenge in and of itself.
Right.
Just keep that.
Okay.
Audience, who is your typical banking audience, right? And then call out your role. And then sole designer of internal pages while working with an internal design agency. Huh. Okay. I don't know if I'd necessarily put sole, because it makes it seem like you're not part of a team. You really want to drive home the idea that you're a teammate.
I'm literally the only person.
And that's fine.
Oh, okay. But make it sound like I'm more of a team.
Yeah, it's a slight omission, but yeah.
Okay.
I want to hire people that are good on teams. I don't want to hire solo people.
Right. No, I mean, we definitely have been working across the entire bank. As far as like being a designer, like I am the team of Parker, literally. That is how
I've been the Denver team for United Healthcare. I built that whole capability and right where I'm sitting right now.
That's
So
awesome.
I know how that goes. Okay, so are we good? J. Parker Baker,
Yeah.
happy camper.
My one last question. Actually, while you were looking at the other portfolios, went on and reactivated my blog because I wanted to know if you would think anything of it. Don't do it. Okay. I had turned it off, but I wanted to know if it was there, what your thoughts were. So don't do it.
I'm not a fan of them, and I'll tell you why. It's just more reading that I have to do.
Right.
And the other thing, and this is true, I had a guy, and I have no idea what happened to him. And I don't even remember who it was, but his blog was filled with really controversial, religiously based politics, right? And I'm not bashing him for having any of it. He's welcome to think whatever he wants to think.
Yeah.
But if I see that on a site and I've got a multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious team, oh my God, like I'm just inviting trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And I said it very as gently as I could possibly do. You know, if I'm a hiring manager, you're welcome to do whatever you want when you get off work, but that has no place with my
In any
yeah. You can keep that to yourself. I don't need to see that. So he took his blog off. 2 weeks later, he got hired. So take that for what it is.
Okay.
I'm just not a blog guy.
I had removed it. I wanted to know if you would say anything because you were mentioning about like the about me section about like what we are as human beings. So I didn't know if that would add another human element to it or no.
No, but if you want to put a video about me on your site, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Like if I could click on there and get like a 2-minute about you, like with, cameos of your dogs or whatever, I think that tells me that you're not just a warm body.
Okay.
You're an actual human who has actual emotions that I should empathize with because you really need a job. It just so happens I have one to hire for.
Cool. All right. That sounds good. I can make that happen.
Cool.
Thank you so much for that review, Joel. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I mention it. Lene, you want to do some questions here while I get the next one up?
Yes. And I've moved to the kitchen. Ta-da. Okay.
We got three more.
Yeah. What do I have here? Okay. So one question, is it a turnoff for hiring managers to see that your online portfolio URL is from a platform like Adobe Portfolio versus having your own URL?
Is it a turnoff? No. Is it something that I notice? Yes, but I'm also mindful that if you're a job seeker, you're probably not that rich and can't afford $300 or whatever it is, $100 a year for your portfolio. And let's be honest, there are people among us who are not rich and who have families to take care of. And therefore, if it says, you know, Joel Barr at Wix.com, who cares? It's something I noticed, but I'm not. I empathize enough with poor people because I was homeless once myself. That sometimes you really don't have two coins you can rub together in order to make something look more professional. You just have to run. You just have to present it. You know, here I am.
I think I got lucky because I'm the only Lene Felice in the entire world. So I got LeneFelice.com for $10 a month or $10 a year. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see, I have another one here.
Okay.
So is there some type of program or file save mode that you can use to make like an Envision or XD prototype faster, like the interactions faster?
I have no idea. That one I have no idea about. I just remember doing usability tests at Lowe's where it would have to go through our server, then to Envision server, and then from Envision server back to Lowe's server, back to the screen. And what we would have are these users, bless their hearts, like the brightest and best people that Lowe's has to offer, who would click on something and nothing would happen. So they'd click on it again, and they'd click and they'd click and they'd click, 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 click. And even at each time that they'd click, right, because they'd get more and more frustrated, it would have to redo those steps back and forth over and over again. So what you got was this completely slow prototype that made it look like our designers were incompetent because we couldn't get them to click through the right thing the way it was supposed to look. Just an anecdote. I think, you know, obviously it's quicker because I'm on my Wi-Fi, but if you're doing it for a big enterprise, keep in mind that there are other people on that server, and so it might be a little bit slower.
Cool.
Just something to keep in mind.
Okay, I think we're good for now. We can move on.
Okay, Cheryl Atkins, Queen of the Mountain. Fresh transplant to Colorado. Where are you from, Cheryl? Where'd you come from? Northwestern University, so Indiana, right? It's outside of Chicago. Is she on? Did she drop already? All right. We'll just run it.
I don't know, but I know Cheryl, so I can relay the message.
Calling out from Quark Express. Hey. Nonprofit. Like, this is great. It's a lot of writing. Cool. This doesn't really tell me anything about her. Right. I see mountains, which is hiking. I see the cairn, which is awesome. I love seeing those when I'm out hiking. But this is still a lot of things about professional and industry and things like that. Like, it doesn't give me any insight as to who she is. In-house creative team for national organization. Cool. Okay. Again, a lot there, right there. Completed an Ironman and many endurance triathlon and running races. I can't do that. No way. My asthma will not let me. Like, I've always wanted to run the Barkley Marathon out in Tennessee. I know full well the best thing I can do for that race is sit on the sidelines and watch people run, because it's just not going to happen. I would love to see more about, like, what is it that makes one go into Ironman racing? Like, and I don't know if y'all know what Ironmans are, but it's essentially, it's like, it's a swim, it's a bike, and then a marathon on top of it, and you do it in one day. You got to be really good at what you do to want to do that, you know, that intensely, right? My cousin runs them. He's out of his mind. So I'd love to hear more about that. And then references, which is great. It's a lot of reading, more reading. I can pretty well guarantee that whoever this person is, they know what they're doing. Right? I can tell, there's some heavy hitters on here. American Veterinary Medical Association. Hey, he seems like he seems pretty. Well, hello, Cheryl. Where are you from?
I'm from Illinois.
Illinois. Whereabouts in Illinois? You just went on mute. Try again.
Chicago, Illinois. I'm sorry. I'm having problems with my my audio, but I think you can hear me now.
Chicago, Illinois. What part of Chicago are you from?
From Elgin, Illinois. So about 50 miles outside of Chicago.
Notorious burbs of Chicago, right?
Yes.
The outer burbs.
Yes.
I for a time lived in Lincoln Park, down next door to the Biograph Theater. There's an antique shop there that had a 6'4" walk up. So, what got you into doing Ironman triathlons and that sort of thing? How long have you been doing that?
Actually, my brother was doing Ironmans and got me into it, and just the ability for people to do something just awe-inspiring and push yourself beyond your limits and set a goal. So I like to set big goals.
Clearly, I can't do that.
Yeah, so you were saying a lot about, like, I know I have a lot of text on my website, and so I've written that down as well.
Okay.
And then I'm also transitioning over from being a designer and creative director to UX. And I'm still kind of unsure. I like UX research, but I also really enjoy the design aspect of it too. So I have a little bit of everything in there, as you can see.
So, I don't want to say this. Are you more feeling like a designer or a researcher today?
Well, I love the role that research plays in it, and I think it's fascinating to understand what the users think and feel about when they're going to a website or an app or whatever. But I don't know, my wheelhouse is visual design, so I kind of tend to lean more towards that, but I really enjoy the research aspect of it. So like I said, I'm kind of still in between.
Okay, so you have 9 projects here. Which one would you like me to look at that says I'm in this to win this, please hire me, etc.?
Okay, so if you scroll to the top there, the upper left, or I'm sorry, the upper right, UX design research. That was my capstone project for Northwestern when I graduated. Okay. I will say it is very wordy though.
and look, I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And again, one man's opinion. You don't have to do anything I tell you to do. Yeah, it's all right.
No, I appreciate all the advice though. It's great.
Okay. Research study aimed to support. Okay. And who came up with this project? So was this something that was assigned to you at Northwestern? They were like, I want you to create an endurance race, logistic planning, and spectating experience.
No, we got to choose whatever we wanted to do. And so being an endurance athlete, both on the spectator and athlete side, I noticed that there was a need for an app that would help with logistics and navigation and bringing information together for groups. So it's kind of a culmination of all the studies and all the different classes that we took. So pulling all your information, all your knowledge together into one project.
Right. What ends a capstone, right?
Yes.
Maybe it'll just tell me on down the road. I do think it's funny that this old boy sitting back here walking. This would be me. Except
I've walked plenty too. So
with like a water bottle in my hand and a giant inhaler in the other one. Just walking.
I've been there. So
I'm not doing this again. All right. So when you write full report, I think that's brilliant. Like if I'm really in the mood to study your portfolio more, I'll go and read the full report. I don't necessarily need it like in front of me. So if you want to, like, for some of you who have like a lot of writing on your portfolio, and I know there's 45 something people in here, like, don't be afraid to like create a PDF with like the really granular stuff and then just link it, you know. It'll go a long way to like you valuing my time as a hiring manager, back to that, right? If I'm really interested in reading the full report, I'll go read it. Rest assured. Hypothesis. Okay, so how did you get, what did you do on your preliminary research to come up with those two conclusions, and how do you show that? Or do you show it further down?
I show further down.
Okay, let's go there. I'm having trouble with my eyes here. Ugh. So how many were in your, how many people were in your population? Like, how many people did you ask about all this?
I did several different things. I did the preliminary surveys, and I got about an 85% rate back from there, and that was about 200 people in a preliminary survey. And then I also did interviews with folks, and I broke that down into, I only had time to do 2 for each user group. So I had, I think, 6 user interviews that I conducted.
Okay. That sounds right. And they were all generative in nature.
Yes, and I had if you go down there, I have each of those things broken out and links to that particular information. So if you wanted to see the work that was done or the script that was written for a survey or the interviews, you can go ahead and read that further. But I tried to keep it to the highlights.
Good. Competitive analysis, we know that already. It's marketing, research data. Affinity diagram. Wow, you did affinity diagrams. Good for you. You don't see those a lot.
Thanks.
I like that you put your transcripts on there. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Did you type them out manually?
God, no. No, I used the service for that, but I did record it. So I took your notes on the recordings of it, so I could put like little audio clips up there if that would be more interesting.
What was the service that you used?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't recall. It was just one of those online services that you upload the transcript and then they get it back to you.
I see. Okay. Great one to use if you pursue user research. Now the transcribing is a little iffy sometimes. There's this program called Otter or Otterly.ai. Really, really solid program. You can even take interviews that you've done and you just have audio for, and it will do the transcription. You just upload it and it does transcribing for you. It's wonderful stuff.
Great, thank you.
Definitely worth the subscription fee. Okay. Validation surveys. So where you? Oh, okay. So you did generative interviews and then you did surveys to back it up with quantitative.
Yes.
So when I see validation, like validation comes in the 3rd stage of the design research process. It's something that flagged for me.
Okay.
Personas, we already went over that. They're all such happy, you never, I've noticed that for athletic-based applications, you never see like, the dad bod of the guy trying to get back in shape. Like,
The dad bod or the person who's like not looking forward to their workout.
Yeah, like oh, I was very comfortable in bed, you know, but no. Okay. 4 personas. All right. Well, okay. You seem to have a little bit of a run into here that you might want to
Yeah,
look
I'm not
at.
sure what's going on there, but I marked that down. So it's always
I know.
on other screens. So
I mean, this is all kind of what I would expect to see. I mean, without, oh, that's the end. Okay. I mean, other than the points I've called out for other people and other than what we've talked about here, I mean, it's exactly what I would expect to see for a capstone.
okay, great.
Just me, right? Nobody else's opinion but me. If you have a hiring manager that doesn't want to go through all this amazing work that you did, you might want to just make a deck to put at the top that says presentation deck, 5 slides, and that sort of thing. Because the work you did here is exemplary, right? But I don't know if I'm going to go through all of it to.
It is a lot, and I
it
struggled
is.
with that, putting it together. Like, you know, how do you put together like a 75-page report down
Yeah.
to a few
Yeah.
a few click throughs? It was pretty difficult. So yeah, I do have a video of a presentation because we had to do presentations as well,
Perfect.
but that's even lengthy too, and that's like 20
Okay.
minutes.
So there's a guy named Travis. He's a UX designer of England. He wrote a paper called The 7 Deadly Sins of UX Research. Go read that. Go listen to that talk sometime, and you'll see. I'm essentially evangelizing what he says in that over and over again, just in my own way, I guess. But one of the things he talks about is don't PhD your reports, and what he means by that is dev teams only need like the most actionable intelligence possible in order to make changes. So just do that. Don't do 75 pages because otherwise it's a school project and not a work project. And I would dare anyone to find somebody in an enterprise that typically writes 40 to 70 page papers and gets them read. And it's the difference. And believe it or not, this is what the big thing that a lot of people that are getting their masters and doctorates struggle with when they move from an academic career to a career in UX. Because in an academic career, the more you write, obviously the more you know, right? In UX, it's the exact opposite. The less you write, the more you presume that that your audience understands what you're talking about. And if they don't, they'll ask you questions about it. And that you'll see a lot of doctorates. I had a doctoral student from Stanford, brilliant person, who I said, send me a copy of one of your research reports, expecting, like that much. And instead I got like that. And I'm like, okay, let's go back. Let's front load that up a little bit. Okay, so do we want to do resume, or are we happy with what we have?
I think I'm pretty good with that too. I have it both where you can scroll through it and then a download on there. So I think it's
Cool.
It's okay. So, but I appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we come to Brandon Byers. 2 left. Is Brandon Byers still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right. Everybody stayed on. Good. Hi, Brandon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Is that a picture of a goat in the background? Why do you have a picture of a goat?
Yes, I have 4 goats, and that's my wife that painted that painting back there.
That's gorgeous. I love I love Nubian goats. Their long floppy ears, I think, are adorable.
Yes.
Loading. Do we have any, Lene, do we have any questions while we wait for this to, oh, there it went right there.
You're good for now.
Any question? No? Okay, we'll just, all right. All right, so Brandon has 3 product design. Now this is interesting. For those of you who are new into UX, a transformation is occurring below your very nose that you ought to be let in on. A lot of enterprises are moving away from calling UX designers, and they're calling them product designers. So when you're looking for jobs, go look for product design positions as well as UX design positions, because you're going to start noticing a lot more product design positions coming up and less UX design positions coming up. And at Lowe's, they were trying to like combine UX architecture with UX design and just call it product design, which drew the ire of more than 1 or 2 people. So our friend Brandon here is already wise to this transformation. So, okay, Brandon, you have 3 projects here. Which one would you like me to look at?
I mean, the one that's going to be the most UX focused would be the first one. The second one is a physical product for the nonprofit that I run on the side. So I don't know how that fits in. So I'm kind of curious in that way, but not to spend time. It'd be the first one that would make the most sense there, that one in blue.
Okay. So you did a blue phone background against a blue background. That's some guts right there. All right. The design of a recipe management application. This is, oh, yeah. All right. Working on the design of a soon-to-be released for iOS. Cool. Apple. Love apples. A baked bread and mise en place is your first step in any bread baking recipe. So you make sure that you have everything out that you need. And I won't tell you how often I screw that up, but the bread always comes out fine. So what was this for, Brandon? Was this your own project, or did somebody?
Yeah,
design
this one's
to
a side project of mine.
Okay, so you came up with the idea for this and then created something accordingly.
Yes, and for, I guess, background or what I'm trying to do is pivot into design. I come from engineering side of things and testing. So
software engineering and testing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you've been on the IT dev side. See how that goes.
Yeah, I haven't, not successful yet. So, but I was so I put together this portfolio for trying to make an internal pivot before COVID-19 hit and all the hiring internally in my company froze. So.
Okay. Target audience was composed of users that were frustrated with UX design choices, pricing, aesthetics, and captivating these early users. Okay. Just a side note, but if I read the target audience was composed of users that were frustrated with UX design choices, pricing, or aesthetics, competing recipe managers, my first question is, how do you know who were they? How did you get your information? Product design is driven by good UX research, right? So if you make a claim that says my target audience was this, that, and the other thing, and here's what they wanted, how do you know that? And that should really be called out from the beginning. So in other words, research comes first, then design. Which is funny because there's some designers that you'll talk to and they'll say, no, that's wrong. That's totally wrong. Design comes first, research comes second. It's a chicken and egg thing. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Just my own opinion. competitive research. This, again, is a market researcher's job, not UX design, product design. There's no reason why you should be asked to be, no reason why someone should ask you to do competitive research, because that should come from a marketing department. Now, I know that this is an internal pivot. I know the backstory around it, just something worth calling out. Because I don't know, like if I'm just viewing this cold, I don't know that this is an internal pivot. Does that make sense? So when I see market research or competitive research, that tells me you're trying to do more than what your job is. Holy mackerel. Paprika 3 down. Okay, so if you're gonna do this, why don't we just do like picture, top 3 points. Picture, top 3 points. I think this is beautifully written. There's no way I'm gonna read it. And I'm under the weather right now, so it's even less inclined for me to read it. KPIs. So this is interesting that you call this out. One thing that I don't see on almost any portfolio are KPIs. Like, how do you measure success? And I'm glad you brought this up because it wasn't on any of the other ones, if you'll notice. There's no indicator of how we know our redesign or the work we do in UX has succeeded or has changed, even by a modicum, the end result of what we were trying to achieve, right? None of them had it. And KPIs are what enterprises run on. United Healthcare runs on NPS scores, steady diet of it. They have like quadrillion terabytes of data that comes to them. They really only care about one score, and that's their NPS score. If it's rated highly, they're doing a good job. If it's rated lowly, they're doing a poor job. That's the only thing they pay attention to. So as you're writing, as you're writing your projects, right? And this is my other complaint about what I learned or conclusion or however you want to say it. That section should really be KPIs and next steps, right? How do we tell how successful we were? Here's our next steps into the next project or next iteration or next sprint or whatever it is. So just side note. I'm sorry, I'm getting hung up on just how good those cookies look right now. Like, screw the app, I'll have a cookie. So that's a tablet. Okay, cool. Pseudo user research is not something I want to read. That's not a good thing. That means you're making up your results. That's not good.
So
I know it's a pivot, right? I get it.
Is it better just to leave the research aspect off completely?
Well, so you were doing this for an internal company, right?
Well, I put it together for an internal company, so they know I'm not coming from a user research background. And I just wanted, I guess, make it clear that I realize this is not legitimate full user research because this is a side project and limited budget and time available for it.
Did your company have user researchers in it?
One, so I guess not really too much.
Okay, so one's better than none, right? So, maybe you take them aside or her aside and say, I'll buy you a pizza and a beer, and if you do a little bit of user research for me on this particular aspect of the project, then it makes it look like you're a product designer that's using research in order to generate user-centered product design, right? If I read pseudo user research, I know you're making it up, in which case that makes it, anything that follows this is being false, right? Because it's not based on an actual user's wants, needs, desires, whims, pain points, pleasure points, whatever. And for me, that's the whole thing of product design, is you're putting the user at the center. If you're doing pseudo user research, you're taking the user out of the center and just, flying by the seat of your pants, as it were. But we'll keep going on it. We'll keep doing it. It's a lot of writing. Okay. All right, so this is, other than the writing, which I'm not going to beat a dead horse on, this is precisely what I would expect to see from a product designer, which is about as high a praise as I can give somebody, right? Like, you take me through your screens, this is what you improved. I would like to see a little more, hey, you know, we did usability testing on it, and this is the tweaks the user would like to see, you know, whatever the 4 pictures are, whatever that is. And then back to what I learned, you know, next steps and recommendations would probably fit there better than what you learned, because we learn everything all the time, right? There's no time where we're not learning something. I'm a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain. Huge fan of Anthony Bourdain. So one of my favorite quotes that I try and live by is from Anthony Bourdain, and he pulls it from ancient Arabic, and he says, they that have the largest serving towels are clearly the masters of their house. In other words, the more seniority you have, the more you serve others. And I think that's a brilliant insight, and it broke my heart when he met his end. Anyway, so are we good here, Brandon, or do you want me to do another one? Or
The only thing I would have a question on is, in a portfolio that's going for product design, does a digital product design specifically, does having something that has, I guess, a little bit more of less of a side project, more of a real business use case, but it's a physical product, that keyboard up there, like, is that fit into it, or is it better just to leave it out completely?
I'm going to sound like a user researcher again. It depends, and here's why. If you're looking to do physical product design and not digital product design, like if that's a career aspiration for you, and it's a career aspiration of mine, my dream job when I got out of college for human factors ergonomics was to go design cockpits for fighter pilots. Like, and that's where I want to be, right? I'll never probably get there doing user research, and probably not without a very serious doctorate degree, but like, if that's where I want to go. So if you want to do like physical product design, like these keyboards, or
I mean, it's not necessarily where I want to go. It's the experience that I have based on the nonprofit I run. So I was like trying to get something that had actual users, actual mistakes throughout the process, workshops that people do these in, learning from those mistakes, building upon them. So I was trying to show like more how I can think about the design process, less so about like the actual product itself.
If you could do it with high-level bullet points instead of long paragraphs around why and how you do things, I think it's brilliant. I think it's wonderful to show. I have no idea what any of these pictures are, but hey, you know, this looks amazing. Round 2, beginner workshop, longer workshop. I mean, it's a great article, and if I were you, you know where I'd do this, believe it or not? I would do this on medium.com and take it, like, I'd put a link to it on your portfolio, but have the longer article on Medium. Because if I'm reading this correctly, essentially what you're designing is kind of revolutionary for how things look right now, right? Like, you're essentially taking the entire keyboard and putting it into a smaller space for the purposes of usability, right? That's something that the world needs to read about. So I would write that on Medium or LinkedIn or wherever else. GitHub, maybe. GitHub would go nuts for this stuff. I'd write it on there and link it onto your portfolio, and then it's not a question of whether or not it belongs there or not. It's just something that's there.
Okay, thank you.
And I actually like the way you write the parentheticals of context and get kind of the inner voice of you being the user is really nice. But I think it's too good to be on a portfolio that's supposed to get you work, right? Then it should be for like an article that could revolutionize the very way that we interact with our devices. Just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, so I think I got enough voice left to do our last one here. Do we have any questions before I get going on this next one?
Let's just do the last one and then we'll follow up with some questions.
Okay. Is Sylvia in the house?
Yes. Thank you for going on past the hour. Appreciate it.
Of course. Can you pronounce your name for me real quick?
In English, Silvia de Gennaro Vieira.
In Italian then? Or just Spanish maybe?
It's a mixture of Italian and Portuguese.
All right, so how do you say it in Italian?
Silvia de Gennaro Vieira.
Hear that accent come out? Oh, it's wonderful sounding. Lovely sounding.
Thank you.
Okay. So you as a researcher. Hello, one researcher
Hello.
to another. Greetings and salutations. Okay.
Thank you.
So we have-
I think
Go
we
ahead.
can. Honestly, I don't really know. I feel like they're all kind of fairly equal. But maybe the third one.
When you say fairly equal, do you mean that you go through the same process and procedure for each one and you just change the names on them?
Kind of. I mean,
Okay.
in terms of like the length and the formatting and all of that, they're fairly similar.
Okay. So you want to do the third one, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, was this for school or was this for, actually, don't tell me that. Just don't tell me. 31 one-on-one interviews, 4 in-field studies, 5 usability tests. Okay, cool. That's okay. So
A lot of text.
yeah. I'm going to see if I can say this right because I'm having trouble with my eyes and throat and things. What does that picture have to do with your takeaways? Did you do the ethnography first?
This picture is part of it's a picture of the in-field visits. So
These are ethnographies.
yes.
Okay. So in research, right, we have a process by which we do discovery, right? We do ethnographies and then we do generative research with users, and then we take all that information and concisely put it to design teams who design a solution, and then that solution we take and we do usability tests, and we do those over and over again until we come to an MVP, and then an MVP gets validation testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for yours, and I don't know if you want to keep all the writing or if you don't want to, and it's entirely up to you. But if I see a photo, right, and then I'm seeing hypotheses, deliverables, and takeaways, I'm going to associate that photo with a methodology from which you got your deliverables and your takeaways from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
we also see up here that you do 3 different methodologies that somehow fit into the overall narrative of your project. So my question is if we discovered a problem, customers had solar panel battery backup, longer time, lower successful rate. How did you find the problem? By what method of research did you come to discover there was a problem? And that you don't have to answer that. I mean, that's just general.
Hypothetical. Okay.
Right? And then out of that, you discovered hypotheses, and then somehow or another, you got to a deliverable as a result of some kind of methodology, and from that, you got takeaways or next steps, right? That goes into a design team. Yeah?
Well, in this case, I was kind of designing the solution. It wasn't a software solution. It was basically a process change solution.
Okay, so, but you're a UX researcher. Why did you design a solution?
Great question, because I was just trying to do everything by myself.
Stop doing everything by yourself. I'm only going to be able to pay you to do one thing. Otherwise, you're going to, you know what happens if you try and do 6 things and I'm only paying you for one thing, but I have the expectation that you're going to do all 6? You're going to burn out. You're going to start looking for a new job, and I'm going to lose you from my team. One day you're going to be there, and the next day I'm going to walk in and you're going to resign and go to someplace else who's going to pay you for all 6. And that really is what happens to people, is that they get, and I can give you names of people who burned out very, very quickly because they did too much and weren't getting paid or recognized for doing all but one. So don't design solutions. Do research on solutions. Let a designer do design. Yeah? Okay. So I like that you have the empathize, define, ideate. Oh my God, ideate. Sorry, I'm under the weather, so I'm just loopy at this point. And then prototype. That's really good. There's something called, have you ever seen what a design squiggle looks like? Have you gotten to see that yet?
With the squiggles up front and then
yeah,
I love that graphic.
I think that does us more good to show it visually and then list out the actual steps, because nobody really, unless you do user research, you don't know what any of that, ideate does. It's like, but the squiggle tells everything you need. Okay. Empathy exercise involves 6 different stakeholders: customer, sales, site technicians, design. Okay. Just me. So when I was at Lowe's, I was in charge of the research for supply chain and merchandise. In telling people about supply chain, I had to be very careful that I didn't appear as a subject matter expert for all things imports or all things supply chain. I read the empathize portion and I see 6 different stakeholder groups, right? These groups all played a part in determining backed up circuits, typically for circuits or appliances in a home. Sylvia, I have no idea what that is. You know what it is because you've done all this study on it, like you've done the research on it. You know it backwards and forwards. I don't have a frickin' clue about what all that means. Like, what happens if I have 6 circuits? What if I only have 2? Like, what does that mean? You're getting really granular when you really need to stay kind of high level, right? And this is what I ran into running the supply chain. People would go, well, how's supply chain going? Well, I'd go off on, some wild ass tear about all the important things that imports can do and the journey and all that. Nobody cared. I went way above where their understanding was and lost a good number of them in the process. We get to define, good, the next step, as it were. 3 main problems. So how did you get to your problems? Like, are there charts? Are there metrics? Some way of saying, this is a great place for quantitative data, right? Of the 6 stakeholders, there were 40 individuals that served under each 6 categories. Of those, in the first grouping, 85% said that they like grape jelly over strawberry jelly. Hey, that's great. I can use that. That's worth designing around, right? And I don't know how that all went with this particular project because you don't call it out. And it would also provide a separation between define and ideate, right? So here's how we define the problem. Here's the charts that we have, right? Our quantitative metrics. Then we ideated. Ideated. Such a hard word for me this morning. Ideated. Or this afternoon, I should say. We ideated. We came up with an idea, and this is what it should look like, right? And if this is supposed to be an A and B test, I don't know, is that what if this is supposed to look like? An A and B test?
No, it's supposed to be, it's 2 different solutions that I proposed. So this is back into the design, the process design part of it.
Okay. And we won't go through that. So somebody else ideates these, right? You're a researcher, you do what you do best, you do research. And when they hand you those 2 solutions, then you can go ask users, hey, which one of these do you like better? A or B? That's good stuff. And then prototype, I mean, again, you conducted 2 usability tests that you got your answers within 2 tests. That's impressive. That is, I can't do that. Like it takes me like 5 or 6 people to figure out whether or not it, works right or not. You did it in 2, so hey, either that means it worked incredibly well on both times, or somebody was asking leading questions, or it didn't work at all and you figured it out within 2 people. Either way, it's an impressive stat. Okay. And so we don't really see KPIs, and we don't really see next steps or recommendations. So you might want to think about putting those in. And then maybe as a result of the research I conducted, these were the changes that were implemented, and you can find them here and maybe a link to whatever the site is. Something like that. Okay. Do we want to do another one, or do we want to?
No, I feel like I've been taking a lot of value from the other reviews as well. So I have a lot of things in my mind. I have one question, which is, I think that I'm trying to do 2 things with this portfolio. One is make it appealing for people like you who would be hiring managers, but also potentially using it for sourcing clients who want to incorporate some sort of user research into their product development, don't have the budget for, hiring a big design agency or something like that.
Those are the worst.
I don't know if, and I've done that with one client so far, which was a lot of fun, and it was good, but it was a friend of mine. So I feel like I would like to be able to use this website for anyone that he knows that I could point towards this as kind of a check out what I can do, but then those people would not necessarily have any understanding of, what user research is. And then I feel like I'd have to use this as basically like a way to advocate for the type of work as well. So I'm wondering, similar to the previous question of, if you're applying to smaller companies versus big ones, it seems a little bit over the top to create 2 versions of this for that, but I'm wondering, maybe could the About Me page be for those prospective freelance gigs, and then the work section be for prospective hiring managers? Or how would you suggest going about that?
So you're talking about 2 different things, actually. One is a portfolio that demonstrates your work in terms of in the context of doing projects for an enterprise. The other one is a sales site.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do with that one is you're trying to sell yourself and your abilities, your knowledge, skills, abilities, and other things, right? So in that respect, maybe having 2 is not necessarily a bad thing. Or you could say, you could put a whole separate page on here, right? So you'd have, so up here, let's say, you know, freelance clients, enterprise work about a resume. In other words, that sales site, in other words, or that sales page could go right here. But I would be mindful about the order in which you put things, so that if I'm a client or a potential client, you know, I'm gonna look at your about and your work first, and maybe your resume before I get into the sales side. You're gonna have to do, and this is gonna sound funny, you're gonna have to do some user research around how that order should look. Because I don't take it from me, I'm not a user, right? Go ask users what order that should be in order to get the most effective bang for your buck, as it were, for being hired as a freelancer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for all the advice. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, that's our last portfolio, I think. I think that's, and we did Melissa Katz first. Yeah. Did we? Yeah. Okay, so we're good.
Yeah, I think all the questions were answered. I know somebody wanted to ask something at the end. I think you kind of already touched on it. But I don't know, maybe you could just reiterate what you meant by like process is key, and you know, how to talk about your process a little bit.
All right. So, see how I want to say this. So in building out your own capability, so if you're a UX researcher and you get hired to build out your own capability, you're gonna have to come up with your own process by which user research is performed in the context of stakeholders, designers, architects, and users. If you are if you're a designer, then obviously there's it's like we started out with the pen and napkin thing, right? And then lo-fis, and then slightly higher fis, and that process that you go through in order to come up with that, you know, like Mr. Baker there, that gorgeous, you know, mobile prototype on InVision, right? There had to be a series of steps before getting there. He didn't just wake up that day and was like, I think I'll design a banking app on my phone, right? Huzzah. You know, and it would be great if that's the way it worked, but unfortunately that's not the way enterprise works, right? There's a process by which there's an intake, there's research that has to be done, there's ideas, there's tons of meetings. Folks, if you don't like going to meetings, don't go into enterprise. Go stay in a freelance role the rest of your days, because I kid you not, most of the meetings that we end up doing are just endless. You'll go through 8 hours of meetings a day just to figure out direction on one project. And it's incredibly frustrating because all you want to do is go do research, and you can't because everybody has to be on the same page.
Do you have meetings to plan other meetings?
Oh my God. And there's always that one stakeholder, that one VP, or that high level cat that checks out like 10 minutes into the meeting. It's like, oh, I've got a hard stop, I gotta go, click. And so anything that he has decision-making power over has to be like let go for the later meeting that you now have to plan in order to get his buy-in for whatever it is.
Yep. All right, well, does anyone have any more questions or anything? I don't see any more coming through on the chat, so I'm assuming everyone's questions were answered. But yeah, I'll put this recording up on the message board for our meetup group. So if anyone wants to go back and review any of this, it'll be up there. And definitely let me know if you have any more questions or need anything that I can do for you. You can follow me on LinkedIn or however you'd like to connect. Oh, someone's asking, Joel, how do they find you on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.com/in/Joel M. Barr. That's my page. You are welcome to hit me up for anything you could ever possibly need. I have Calendly as well, so if you want to schedule a call for one-on-one time, that's calendly.com/JoanneBarr. There's never any charge for any of that at all. Like, I don't charge people for this at all. I probably should, but I don't. I don't know why I don't, but whatever.
You're very kind.
I'm a sucker is what it is. I'm a sucker. Interestingly, if anybody ever has anybody that does, like if you're in an interview and they say, I have a design challenge for you to do, don't do those for free. Please, you're worth something. Your time is worth something. Hand them your Venmo or your Cash App and be like, my hourly rate's like $50 an hour. You pay me, I'll do whatever you want. I think those design challenges are done or are put to candidates to see if they're suckers or not. Like, how desperate are you to get a job with us? Are you willing to work for free to do it? You shouldn't be. Like, if they're not willing to pay you to do design challenges that aren't for real, right? Then they're not going to pay you to do real things, in my opinion.
Yeah, because shouldn't they be able to see that in your portfolio if you know how to do a design challenge?
Yeah. They're gonna short you on doing their homework for them for free, then you don't want to work for them. And I don't care if that's Google or if that's whoever it is. They should be willing to pay you for your time.
I agree.
So if anybody hook up with me on LinkedIn, ask me any questions I might have missed. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so if I don't get back to you today, I'm very sorry. I'll try to get to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Someone did ask another question. Do you want me to?
Okay.
Okay. So it says, it seems like so many companies seeking mid-level people ask you to work for free. Wait, I don't know what they're saying. Christina, can you come on and ask that question if you're there?
Hey, I was just wondering, like, I know it's not great to work for free, but is that something that you can use as a portfolio piece since they don't own it? And then it's almost like you're getting direction from a company and you can say, I work with such and such company, and kind of swing it into something that could be something that leads to a different job?
No, but I like where you're thinking. I like where you're going with that. I work for Google on this project. I totally get where that's not going to fly. Because I know researchers and designers on Google's team, and I can call them up and be like, did she work on this particular project? And they're like, this isn't even one of our projects. This is a design exercise. Okay, right? Then it doesn't paint you in a good light, in other words. But I love where you're going with it. Like, it's very smart insight.
But you could put it in your portfolio as just a design project, right? I mean,
but
you can't say you did it for Google or something like that.
But I'm more interested as a hiring manager, I'm more interested in what you've done for clients and or for enterprise than I am around what your personal projects are, right? Otherwise it just makes you look like a rogue designer, like you're just gonna go off and do what you want on your own. You don't really need me at that point. You're gonna do what you want.
Joel, how do you feel about that? Like having fake projects in your portfolio, or like, your passion projects that you're just doing to show that you know the process and things like that?
As long as you call them out and if you're gonna design, then be a designer and say, I have a friend of mine who's a UX researcher, did the UX research that came up with this then design, then great. Feel free to, but just make sure you call them out, like, personal project, not for real, I didn't do this for pay, this is for free, but don't try and be the generalist who does everything on that project, right? Have a team. If you're in boot camp, it's the greatest thing ever. Go find 5 or 6 of your friends who are boot campers, like fellow boot campers. Make sure one of you can do design, one of you is an architect, one of them is a researcher, a UI person, and a developer. Make your own little company. Go freelance as a team. Because that, like, if you have that and you're freelancing as a team and then you come to me for a job in enterprise, I'm going to be like, they know how to do that on a shoestring and they do it together and they get along and there's, you know, it's like, you ever listen to a band and then you find out that one of their members is actually part of another band that you really like, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying that one piece of music is more superior than the other. They're just getting other work, right? One goes out on tour, the other one records in the studio. The other one goes on tour. Run it like that. And I promise you, you'll have a lot of success doing that, because I know enterprises that will happily hire, you know, consulting teams to develop their projects who are well, you know, cemented in with one another than they will, you know, hiring a bunch of people at $130,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, I think that is good. Let's see. Oh, Christina says that we should donate to your relocation cause because this was priceless. So thank you for being here today. We really appreciate
I'm never
that.
doing a relo on my own time again. That was the lesson I learned from that.
Well, you're here in Denver right now, right?
I am. I'm in Castle Pines, where it's supposed to snow this, like, tonight,
I know,
think it
right?
is.
So weird.
70 degrees outside. It'll have snow on the ground by tomorrow morning. So that's
Yeah, totally
Great.
Colorado.
great
Yay.
reason to stay in bed sick.
Yep. All right. Well,
Thank you so much for putting this on. Thank you all for sticking around. I see that we've gone from 47 participants to 13. Thanks for being Iron Man. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my pontificating and hot air. So much obliged.
yeah, it was a long one, but we really appreciate you taking the time. That was really awesome. So thank you so
Good times.
much.
Feel
Yes.
free to have me back anytime. Have a great
Well,
day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, don't mention.
Cool.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye. Hope you
Have a
feel
good
better.
day. Bye-bye.
You
Bye.
too. Thanks, everyone.